What up? YouTube Flash speaks back another video. Being a Philadelphian that I am my whole life, born and raised, and a follower of Philadelphia Eagles and Sixers and to a certain degree Philly sports, I notice trends. I know us. I know how we do. You have the fan base on one hand that is very passionate, and a real fan base because, well, we tune in, we spend our money, buy the gear, go to the games, argue on behalf of the team, talk about it in restaurants and barbershops and at the job, etc. and so forth. You know what I'm talking about. One thing about our local media is that sometimes they work for good, like they're good in supporting the team. Like I would say, the morning show, Angelo Cataldi. For those who understand Philadelphia and the history here, they've done a lot of good. But then sometimes they also do the opposite. Sometimes the team is in a situation where they just really overall are a good team, and they tend to be going through a little tough spot. And sometimes the fan base is actually understanding of that, because sometimes this fan base has more insight than those who are paid to speak on the team. And one such individual here is Dan Sileo, who's not a Philadelphian. He's not from this area. He's actually from another part of the country. He never played for the Eagles. He played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as you can tell, back when the Buccaneers were like the joke of the league. And he has been given his job on a local sports internet show that's based here. And the sentiment that he's having is typical of what happens here when the Philadelphia Eagles are going through a little period where it really was a very predictable period. What they do is they talk the way he's going to talk here. And I'm going to use this as an example here and kind of respond and give my thoughts on what he had to say about the current situation.
That team is not as good as you think it is. They're last in every defense. This is a tsunami coming, and you don't see it. Gary Cobb saw it. Seth Joyner saw it. But when you see 10-1, the fan base does this. These two guys are just haters. No one loves them. They're just talking shit.
Now, he here is exaggerating this. There is some truth to it there. Seth Joyner for months and for years has criticized the defense, not believing that it was a championship defense. What's interesting, though, is that most of the fans actually, well, I can speak for myself, and the fans like myself, agreed with Seth Joyner when it comes to the defense. We agreed that, and if you can follow my videos, you would know, I never liked Jeffrey Lurie's choice for defensive philosophy. I never saw the reason for the Fangio defense. I never was a supporter of Jonathan Gannon. And many of the fans are this way. I would say more of the Philadelphia fans were the ones that were against Jonathan Gannon despite the success of the team last year. And it was those on the radio station. It was the Ike Reeses. It was the not necessarily John Ritchie, but the Joe DeCameras, and it was these guys who were defending Jonathan Gannon. And it's this clown that we have named Elliot Shore Parks, who was actually an Eagles beat writer, who was defending Jonathan Gannon. It was mostly the fans who were not defending them. The fans were actually able to see through the smoke screen. And we always had this fear that though we were winning last year, there was a chance you'll run into a situation where the defense would kill you. This, I believe, was the overwhelming sentiment of the fan base. And anyone who listens to, say, WIP, this is 94.1 or 97.5, if you listen to the actual fans and not the host, I think this is what you will find. But here, Dan Sileo, I don't know, he likes to coax or likes to trigger the fan base by making it sound like the fans were deluded all season by the wins and the close wins. When, in fact, most of the fans weren't happy with a lot of the flaws in the team. However, the reality is when a team is winning, you can only criticize but so far without sounding foolish. You can only go but so far with the criticism, and even Dan Sileo after the game against Buffalo had heaped a lot of praise on the Eagles. Now he wants to act like all of a sudden, he was this wizard who was able to see through what's going on and is trying to preach to a so-called deluded fan base. And I believe that's just a false narrative.
And we saw the tsunami. And this is the reason I picked the Cowboys last week and the Niners. Teams that play the Niners, then the next week, they're 1-26. They beat you up. And that's what showed out. Let's bring Gary Cobb in.
Which one is it? Were the Eagles always frauds? Were they always bad? Or are you saying because they played the Niners the week before, they were bad? You can't have it both ways. I understand sometimes when we're talking, we're not like paying attention to what we're saying, but this is the things that lead people to think you're just blabbing. You have to be consistent in your thought. All right.
Now from Fox 29, and I'm sure it's been a hell of a day, but boy, Gary, I mean, your takeaway from really what that and Gary, let me throw this at you here right away before you answer here. Red zone defense, 30th. Yards per game, 22nd. Third down defense, 32nd. Passing TDs allowed, 31st. Points per game, 28th. This is not a Cowboy thing. This has been a year-long thing.
Well, it is. It's something that really is really discouraging, because this team is just. They just haven't been playing. They don't play sound football. A lot of the guys in the secondary, unfortunately, like Seth said, don't want to tackle people. Come on, somebody's got to make the tackle, and they haven't really done that. And really, I got to admit, the Cowboys got after them. Man, I mean, this is one of the best.
Paying your bills on time raises your credit score, right? Wrong. In fact, this is the first of 3.
The Cowboys got.
Sorry about that. I really do need to pay that premium. This is getting ridiculous.
After them, man. I mean, this is one of the best games they played because they ran the ball on the Eagles. I mean, they ran the ball down their throat. And then anytime they wanted to, they just took whatever they wanted. And, they were up and down the field. Really, it could have been a worse score than it was. I mean, it was bad. But it could have been even worse, but they haven't been.
Yeah, I don't agree that it could have been actually worse. I do believe the Philadelphia Eagles defense actually did play better in the second half. I don't believe it could have been worse. And this is another thing. If you really go back to most of the earlier bad performances of the Eagles, or the performances of the Eagles, because it's a difference of opinion whether it was bad or not. Typically, they were against very tough teams, with the exception of the 2 Washington games. I think there's no excuse for allowing the Commanders to score 30s on you, all right? But for some reason, the Eagles secondary is just a bad mismatch against Washington. But typically, the narrative was the Eagles were a team in the first half that weren't necessarily the sharpest, especially against the tough teams. Against the Chiefs, against the Bills, against Miami, against Dallas. But then the narrative was they go into halftime, they come back and make adjustments, and people were saying they were the best second half adjustment team in the league. That was the narrative. But how quickly that changes when you lose 2 games.
Playing sound football all year long. They've been able to get away with it by just kind of making a few big plays late in the game and kind of saving themselves. But it was bound.
Now you're saying just making a few big plays in the game. Before it was they were making adjustments because one or two things are happening. If you're down in the first half and then you go into the second half, you have to play better defense and offense to win the game. You can't just make a few big plays and win. But this is what these guys do. When you're losing, every spin on every narrative is negative. And so you never get the positive spin. When we were winning, it was we're a resilient team, mentally tough team. This team finds ways to win. But when you lose, it's, you don't play sound football. You can't tackle. You And then there's some truth to it, but my point is they exaggerate.
That happened, and they really just got exposed by another quality football team that came in and really took whatever they wanted. I mean, if anything, like I said, they took their foot off the gas pedal and didn't really just humiliate them, which they really could have.
The last two teams.
That's no way of proving that, and I don't believe that. I don't believe the Dallas Cowboys took the foot off the gas. The Dallas Cowboys traditionally are a team that never take the foot off the gas, and especially they're not going to take the foot off the gas against the Philadelphia Eagles. The game was close, actually. The Philadelphia Eagles fumbled the ball twice. That's the truth. They didn't take their foot off the gas. The Eagles were turning the ball over. Okay.
Niners did the same thing the week before they took the foot off the gas pedal.
All right. How the hell did the Niners take the foot off the gas and they scored 42 points? What do you think they were going to score? 60? He said the Niners took their foot off the gas, right? En route to score 42 points. Hey, these guys are crazy, man. But these are the things we deal with local media. You know, the irrational emotionalism.
Gary, I blame Howie for that defense, and here's why. I mean, you know, again, I get that he pays the quarterback coming up here in the next couple of years, but him paying him, the team suffered. And I mean by this, the linebackers, every guy on that unit has been waived this year. The safety position has no money. Mm-hmm. And for him to devalue it the way that they did, for all the success that he had a year ago, this has been a colossal disaster.
Now, fact check, okay? Jalen Hurts, most of his money is front-ended and put into the signing bonus. This year, Jalen Hurts, off of the cap, is actually making $6 million, okay? So to say that that because they paid Jalen Hurts that this has made the linebacker position suffer is just fake news. It's just flat out not true. If the Philadelphia Eagles were totally cap-strapped and didn't have money to put in the linebacker position, and that'd be the reason they didn't pick up linebackers, they would not have been able to sign Kevin Byard or Julio Jones, which was proof that Howie Roseman did have money left over in the cap, right? This is what happens when you lose, okay? When you lose a couple of games, even though you're 10-3. And this is what happens locally. Prior to this, Howie Roseman was a genius. He was the best. Around the time of the trade deadline, people were saying, Howie Roseman does it again. He signs another guy. Safety Kevin Byard, all pro. This is what they were saying, right? You lose a couple of games, now all of a sudden it's all Howie Roseman's fault, so on. And we're going to talk about the linebacker position in a second and show how, Dan is just talking nonsense when it comes to that as well.
Obi Dean, faith that they had in him, this has to fall. I mean, let's just talk about personnel first. They didn't retool that defense like they did from a year ago.
Well, the things that you mentioned about at the linebacker position, I mean, where this is like, it's not an important position. What? Linebacker's not an important position. You don't have as many linebackers on the field, but they play a vital role because, they make most of your tackles.
All right. Now, the linebacker position. There is this narrative that the Philadelphia Eagles don't value, the linebacker position. I mean, what do we mean? Now, it is a factual that the Philadelphia Eagles prioritize, say, the defensive line, number one, and the secondary, number two, especially cornerback, over linebacker. There's no doubt about it. But to say the Philadelphia Eagles completely abandoned the position isn't really true. If you look, when Nakobe Dean was drafted, he was a first-round projected player who had received all types of honors in college. He was considered the first or the second best linebacker in the draft. He was taken in the third round by the Eagles, but he was actually projected to be first-round talent. Just go back and check. If the Eagles didn't value the position at all, they wouldn't have taken him at all. But they did take him. As far as the outside linebacker, I mean, they could have re-signed Kazir White, but apparently they didn't think Kazir White was worth it. And I understand when you look at that Super Bowl again, you'll see that Kaiser White played a pivotal role, in failing to stop Patrick Mahomes coming out of the backfield. That back-breaking run that Mahomes hit on us was a result of him. Now, people can criticize T.J. Edwards not being re-signed. I do understand that, but if you really look at the opinions of T.J. Edwards last year, he was a solid middle linebacker. He was never considered like anything special. I mean, it's not like you let Fred Warner or go or something like that, right? So, I mean, one could look at it as you let him go. The other was he was kind of a placeholder for Nakobe Dean, who was the high draft pick, right? And this is what happened since Nakobe Dean got hurt. Now all of a sudden the narrative is how he isn't valuing linebacker. It's true, they're not going out there they're not out there spending first round picks on linebackers, yeah, but it doesn't mean you don't value it at all. It's just that in the first round pick they're going to take a defensive line first. Okay, now there are other options. I believe you could see how Nolan Smith looks at linebacker. I think he could do some of those things. And then number two, they went and got Shaquille Leonard, 4-time All-Pro. Right? It remains to be seen whether or not he'll pan out, whether or not how much he has left in the tank. That remains to be seen. However, how do you say that the Philadelphia Eagles don't value linebacker at all, and then not give him credit for picking up Shaq Leonard, and to just say Shaq Leonard is a player, that was on waivers, so that means how he doesn't value linebacker, I think is a bit disingenuous. But this is what we deal with when we have these emotional guys speaking on the team who aren't fact-checked or fact-checking.
So if they're not tackling well, then you got a problem because they got to be able to make open field tackles. A lot of times they're one-on-one with people. So, they've got to be good players. And really, the defensive line really, wasn't dominating. If they're dominant, then it kind of covers over things, but they haven't been dominating. I mean, and against Dallas
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think that's more schematic, than anything. But I agree with that.
Offensive line. I mean, Dallas has got a good offensive line. I mean, a number of those guys are Pro Bowl level type players, and they were blocking the Eagles. And Dak is, he's playing outstanding football. 1, 2, 3, and the ball is out. So it was ugly. I mean, it was painful to sit there and watch that.
How do you think
24-6 at the half?
Gary?
Yeah, that half was ugly. I was ready to throw in the towel.
When I look at Jalen, I said this earlier, and I go, you paid a guy $50 million, and the Jalen Hurts that I see this year, that's not $50 million worth of quarterback. To me, last year was. Now, if you want to...
Yeah, well, last year, you got to play a last-place schedule against teams that none of them were in the playoffs, with the exception of the Cowboys, who, we beat once. And I don't remember. You played Tennessee. You played that's what happens. Jalen Hurts is paid to get you through those games like the Chiefs, to get you through those games like the Bills, to get you through those games like that game in Dallas where he was on a bum knee, where he still beat Dak Prescott, though people think Dak Prescott outplayed him even though Jalen Hurts was on the bum knee. Can't have it, both ways. That's what he's there to do. It's not there to just get a bunch of freaking numbers. That's what people think. People think you're there to get a bunch of numbers, But, I mean, that's what we're dealing with.
Put the RPO in, then you add that to the game plan, I'm going to pay that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to take that part of his game out, where he's holding the ball, as long as he is, which you and I would know this, he struggles reading defense.
Yeah.
And you want to know why the play's taking time to develop so long? It's because he can't find him. He can't find the receiver. What's happening in Philly? They're blaming the routes.
All right, yeah. Here comes this idiot, right? I've never seen Dan Sileo break down any film when it comes to any defenses at all. He just sits up there and talks. I've never seen him do that. So I'm not certain Dan Sileo knows how to read a defense. I'm pretty certain he probably isn't good at it. Okay. Now, let me tell you what's happening with Jalen Hurts. With Jalen Hurts, it's not an issue of not being able to recognize the coverage that a defense is giving you. There's only but so many coverages. And a guy that spends time watching film will see the coverage, right? There's a difference between reading a coverage and beating a coverage. Just because you can completely recognize a coverage and see exactly what the defense is doing and still not succeed on a play. Like, I hope people understand that, right? What's happening oftentimes is Jalen Hurts is holding the ball not because he can't read the defense, but because he's waiting for a receiver to get open. And I know this because I look at these all 22s like every week, all of them. Sometimes you're waiting for the receiver to get open. Now, where I will critique Jalen Hurts is not taking the check down in situations, right? He suffers from the playmaker problem. Like, playmakers oftentimes have this problem, is that they believe in themselves so much that they can get out of stuff and can make special things happen. And they keep thinking that they're going to do that every play, whereas, you got to take a little bit of the game manager mentality of the Brock Purdy and, those guys, and just take the check down. And that's all really Jalen Hurts has to do oftentimes, is just take the check down. But this narrative, he can't read the damn defense and all of that, is it's just not provable. Hasn't been proven. Like to say, okay, well, last year he could read defenses, and all of a sudden he can't. Sure, coaches will do new things and add new wrinkles to a defense that you haven't seen before. And then you have a drive. Let's say you have a 3 and out. You go to the side, you look at the pad, oh, that's what they're doing. Then you come back and you beat it next time. And that's typically what he does.
And they're blaming the wideouts. No,
Yeah.
The quarterback can't find him. Okay? They don't want to put it on the quarterback.
That's right. Well, he's, others have looked at it, and you can see where he's taken a long time to read the coverage and to decipher about where he's going with the football. Now, he's gotten better at that. If anything, I think he's kind of...
Scientists have found that some men make a bathroom habit to grow their tool by up to 52%.
Where he's going with the football. Now, he's gotten better at that. If anything, I think he's kind of fallen off of that. He was getting better at that. But clearly, he has been, holding the ball against San Francisco. The offensive line did a good job against San Francisco, but he was holding the ball. He wasn't making a quick decision and getting that ball to the open guy. And, he's struggling some yesterday doing that.
It's just not taking the check down. It really ain't that complicated. Just take the check down.
So you got a combination of that. And then the fact that you got to give Dallas credit for the fact they were going after the football. They play aggressive defense where they're punching the ball out. They're going after the football. And, that's a
good point with that. When you have fumbles, that has nothing to do with reading defenses. But, this is what happens. Jalen Hurts is this terrific quarterback when you're winning. As soon as you lose a game or two, now he can't read defenses and all of that kind of stuff. This is what we deal with here.
The football you want to play, because if you force turnovers, you're going to win. Most of the time, you're going to win the game. And those 3 turnovers the Eagles had were vital because they were in Cowboys territory. They were trying to keep the game close. And those 3 turnovers were, crucial. And it basically just made, just say, okay, everybody drive safely on your way home. This one is over. And that's the way that game was, man. I mean, I got to give it, the Cowboys are playing better. I mean, they are getting better and better as the season goes along. And the way things are right now, the Eagles, of course, have a chance to change that. But, it's the Cowboys and the 49ers are playing the best football. And the Eagles, they probably did them a favor. If somebody slaps you in the face, they're giving you a chance to wake up. Now, this still could be a team, but they got to have a talk, with the man in the mirror. How about some guys not out there playing as hard as you would like to see?
Gary, how about this? Have you been surprised? And I brought this up. Kellen Moore, when he was in Dallas, he moves to Los Angeles with Justin Herbert, and the Charger offense is awful. Mike McCarthy takes over.
Yeah.
Dak looks like this is the best year he's had in his 9-year career.
Without a doubt.
Underneath passes, the balls, like you said, getting in and out quicker. I mean, he's finding
Underneath passes. Just taking a check down.
guys, receivers like Brandon Cooks and these other guys, Michael Gallup. He's turning this guy first.
I don't care about what he has to say about Dallas. What I was trying to point out here is this is what we deal with locally, right? These guys that are paid to talk about sports, and he helped negatively influence the thoughts of many of the fan base here. And I just wanted to comment on that. You got a lot of these guys like Dan Sileo, who he has this opinion of, I'm going to say Jalen Hurts, for example. He has this opinion of him. That's his base opinion. His base opinion of Jalen Hurts is that he's an average quarterback with average talent, somewhat skills, a lot of heart, and not much of a brain. And when I say not much of a brain, he believes that he really doesn't understand football, doesn't understand defenses, doesn't understand what he's looking at, right? This is his opinion of Jalen Hurts, all right? He has to, because Jalen Hurts wins so much and rarely loses, he has to keep that opinion that he has of him down and give him credit. Oh, this kid has such heart. This kid is really a fighter. This kid does this and does that, right? So that when the inevitable losing comes, because all these quarterbacks lose, then he gets to say, he's really what I thought initially. Then on the flip side, he talks about Justin Herbert. You just got to pay attention here. Justin Herbert, was just this great quarterback, such and such. Then Kellen Moore goes there, and all of a sudden he's horrible. The problem with that argument there is that Dak wasn't horrible last year, nor the year before, because Kellen Moore wasn't just there last year. Right? Cowboys won 12 games. Dak Prescott was dealing with injuries. He's out part of the beginning of the year, etc. There was a lot going on with that, But that's just all it, man. We're not going to let this be too long. I'm out.